Welcome back, loves. Today I will be telling a scary story, as I will be for the entire month, but it must relate to my channel, as you all know. So it will be a scary story revolving around mental illnesses or sad situations. Our first story talks about OCD, so I would like to give out a quick trigger warning beforehand that this story contains mentions of killing, blood, and suicide, as well as mental illness. So if you aren't comfortable with that, then I suggest you leave immediately. My apologies and thank you. The story is called The Voice Who Could Hear Me, and it begins by a girl called Selena. She was studying in college to become a psychologist, and she had 5 years to complete, and as the story is being told now, she is in her 4th year. She would check on the stove 3 times a day before actually leaving the house, and she would barely want to leave because of the worry that she had forgotten, even though she had checked 3 times. So she was always a shy and quiet, introverted person, and couldn't really get courage to talk to anyone or make friends, so she focused only on studies. But every time she walks into her dorm room, it's like she can hear someone saying, "Wash your hands," and she would abide by the anonymous order. And then once she finishes washing her hands, the same voice asks her to wash them again, saying, "Maybe you should wash them again. I'm not sure you did it properly." She would go through this every single day until she slept, which is when the voice would disappear. One morning, she got really annoyed by it and decided to ignore it all day long. She focused well, but was a little threatened and barely made it through the day. She decided to read about this online, and it's appearing to be an obsessive disorder. She didn't believe it, she didn't want to believe it, and yet it was the only way anything would make sense. So she skipped college the next day and decided to seek professional help. But after her visit, she didn't really get any help, as the hospital seemed to be completely ignorant that she was there. By this, she was both shocked and confused. She went back to her dorm absolutely dreading herself, and yet she noticed something, and that was that the voice would only reach out when she's in her dorm. So she decided to ask a nearby student to come over to her dorm. She made them both instant noodles, and they started talking, seeing as they were both in the same profession, and she heard nothing from the voice the entire time that the person was there. So the next day, before she left for her classes, the nagging voice was back. But this time she left a meal out, and the voice, thinking that she would forget and think that she's the one who ate it, ate half of it, and when she got back she found half the dish gone. She crept through silently, holding a baseball bat, being convinced that someone was living in her dorm, but she checked again and again and again, but nothing and nothing at all. She couldn't forget about the matter, and yet there was nothing she could do about it, so she tried to ignore the voice, but whenever she would wake up in the morning with a bruise each day on her legs, arms, or neck. She was absolutely terrified, and yet she decided to leave the class as if nothing happened. That day, she went up to a classmate and asked for some notes, but she was completely ignored, and it's like she wasn't even there. Only the person she invited the day before would speak to her, as she was ignored by everyone, including her teachers, and she exclaimed hurtfully to that person that everyone was ignoring her, and that is when the person looked at her shocked and said, "Did you forget you died 2 years ago and these people can't see us?" As she says that, the girl wakes up from her sleep with another bruise, but this time she was bleeding and the blood was shaped into "Wash your hands." Upon seeing that, she decided to leave permanently and never return. And that very same day, while she was on a bus, she saw a video titled "The Memorial Day of the Student Who Was Never Found." With a picture of her on it. It turns out that she had went missing 2 years ago and apparently died, and the person she was talking to this entire time died 3 years ago, exactly on the bed she slept on, and so her dorm was believed to be haunted. Upon seeing the video and how all the people she loved and knew were being questioned, and many other horrible aspects in which she had been labeled dead, she was in absolute tears. But this would explain so much as to why she never spoke to anyone, and why she never got any calls from her family, why the person was the only one who could see her, and why the driver on the bus never took her ticket. As she roughly puts her phone down, she sees the very same person who she was talking to sitting next to her on the bus and said, "You died due to so much blood loss, and I'm the only one who knows that." And what you thought was yesterday was actually 2 years ago, and we're both stuck now, so I might as well have ended you in the ghost world. And the girl was absolutely horrified and attempted to suicide, but no matter what she did, nothing would make her leave. The person appeared again and said, "Wash your hands," and it is then when she may have realized that she was murdered by someone who was already dead, but at the same time she wasn't completely gone, as she still had a human body and couldn't go through things like the person could, so it's safe to say that she isn't alive but isn't dead either, and I still wonder today what happened with her 2 years ago. But what I do know is that a dead person was capable of killing someone who was alive, so try to look over your shoulder every now and then. And wash your hands, darling.